I'm going to do a quick overview slash review of this. This is the BSeed portable heated shower. I was looking for a portable shower solution and there really wasn't a whole lot out there. So this was the sort of recommended item on Amazon at the time. It's actually on sale right now for about $45. I picked mine up for about $60. So I'm going to do a quick overview of that, as there really wasn't a full-on review of the gear. There was a couple of those 1 or 2 minute sort of AI videos that are really prevalent in the space now, but nothing really what I would consider a full-on review. So I'm going to do a quick overview on these and show you what it's about. All right, first up, this is the box that it comes in, sort of nondescript. Looks like sort of one of these boxes, yeah, made in China. So I'm guessing that this company, I'm not familiar with their products, BSeed, so I'm guessing pretty much anything you get that has the same specs as this is probably made in the same plant as a lot of these sort of items are. So I wouldn't even take the brand so much in mind. All right, so this isn't a full-on unboxing, as I've actually sort of done that already. It doesn't actually come in this bag. This bag does come with the set, but it all just comes in this, in the original packaging here. And then I moved everything over here after I tried it for the first time. So let's go ahead and pull everything out, take a quick look at everything, and I'll kind of give you my opinions on these. And then I'll show you what it actually looks like in function. I always appreciate those in reviews myself. All right, let's pull everything out here. So this here is the bracket. So this guy is sort of a ratchet mechanism. So it actually comes with these hooks here. They're in the, got them set aside in the bag. It's good to keep some of this stuff dry, power cord and stuff like that, but I'll come back to all that. Anyway, so the bracket can be set up one of two ways. You got these suction cups for flat surfaces, such as if you're using it as a backup in an actual shower in a house or inside an RV or something. But if you're going to use it, say on a tree branch, you're going to use those two metal hooks that go in these holes, and then it hooks over the branch, and there it goes. So what goes in there is obviously the shower head. It'll go in here, and then use that ratchet mechanism to get your, you know, desired sort of angle there. And it goes down to about, let's see, I'll show you when I actually get it put in, but it goes to about there, so maybe about 45 degrees. Might as well do the shower head next. So you got a rotating head here with a couple of different sort of, I guess it's actually really rotate much, but so you've got the, what looks like a rotating head. You've got a valve here, which I know works for closing the mechanism. So with the flow rate that you've got here, and I'll go back to this when we actually go to use it, you probably want to keep this off unless you're actually rinsing off. So when you're, you know, soaping up, for example, unless you have a really large supply of water, you probably want to keep this in this off position, and then only switch it on when you're actually using it. We'll come back to the flow rate and all those sorts of things when we go there. This shower head is not my favorite piece in the whole thing. Got plastic threads here, got an O-ring. Plastic threads kind of worry me with this sort of thing. The gasket is actually on the hose, so you don't find one of those in here. But this is all, I mean, I wouldn't say it feels cheap necessarily, but it's clearly fairly lightweight plastic. I mean, it's a fairly standard thread pattern, I'm sure, so you could probably replace this if need be, relatively inexpensively. It'd be nice to replace it with a real shower solution, but those are probably going to have metal threads, which this is the hose, which also has plastic threads, so you need to be careful about that. Plastic on metal threads is definitely not a good idea. As I said, you got a gasket here on each end. There is a replacement of those in this bag as well that comes with it. You can see one of them right here. So this hose is, I believe, about 6 feet long, give or take. Fairly flexible plastic. Looks like something you'd see maybe in like an aquarium system. Similar sort of rubber. No real issues with this. Again, plastic on plastic. That's really the only complaint I would have. But at this price, I mean, at, you know, what, $45 to $60 or so, that's what you're going to get. You're not going to get metal in here, especially in a camping solution that's meant to be fairly easy to transport. This is the heating element here. So I'll show this when we actually go to use it. So this is the element that actually heats the water, and it uses a standard plug, 2000 watts. I believe what I read, you're going to expect to use quite a bit of ampage, so you need to be mindful of that. It's probably equivalent ampage-wise to using something like a microwave. So depending on what sort of outdoor portable solutions you have, you need to be mindful of that. But this really sort of reminds me visually of the thermoelectric generator, the tag in my BioLite stove, which makes sense. It's the same shape, and it basically has the same job, basically conducting, you know, thermal energy one way or the other. And in that case, it was to converting it into electricity. In this case, it's converting it from electricity to heat, sort of the opposite. But it's the same shape, very interesting. So basically what happens is you put this in the water, you plug it in, and depending on the volume of water you've got, it's going to heat that water. And as the water heats up, that heat is going to accelerate, and I'll go over that when we actually bring it inside to use it, and I'll show you that. But then they make note of this in the instructions. It's important that you unplug it. 10 seconds is what they recommend before pulling it out of the water, and then you air dry it. Obviously, I'm guessing this probably gets hot. The actual element that heats is not this outside metal, but it's a tube within that. But I'm guessing that this is all still probably pretty hot. When I used it, I pulled it out by this plastic after maybe 15 or 20 seconds, and I had no issue moving it without getting burned, but I didn't touch any of this. I imagine it's probably pretty important to keep this dry as much as possible when it's not in use, because I'm guessing this is stainless, but metal still finds a way to corrode. So the heating element here, as I said, 2000 watts, uses quite a bit of electricity, but seems to work quite well, and I'll show you that once we actually get it inside to use. This here is the star of the show, in my opinion. This is the pump itself. And I don't want to turn it on because it's not in the water, which you're never supposed to do with these sort of pumps. Think of like one in your fish tank. You can easily burn this motor right out. Suction cups on the bottom, so that'll stick right into your, enough where it'll stay vertical in the vessel that you're using, which is important because these vents are on the bottom, and that's actually what brings the water in. Eventually comes up through this hole here where the plastic threads from this tube. So basically what that means is this water level can get quite low in the vessel that you're using, and you'll still be able to draw water up, which is important when you're, when you have a limited supply of water that you're using. So I'll show this. We've got a digital display, and I'll show it once we actually get it in the house. So you've got one side, you've got your power indicator, and the other side, you've got your temperature of the water in Celsius. I'm not sure if there's a conversion, but I've found that I use the shower at about 40 degrees Celsius. So take that from what you will. It was about 105 degrees Fahrenheit, which I'll show you again. Power button, once on, so there's two different flow modes. Green is the high flow mode. If you touch it once, if you hold it once for a few seconds, it'll go green, the high flow mode. Then you want to tap it, hold it for a second, and it'll go red for the low flow mode, which is what I used it on, and I'll explain why once we get in there. So the bottom comes off. I haven't actually done that yet. I probably want to use these two screws, I'm guessing, right here, and that's so you can clean it. So remove a screw in each end, this assembly will come out, and then you can actually clean the pump element in there. And there is some steel wool which comes with it, so you can help facilitate that. So just typical steel wool and a cute little guy here. This is the thermometer, thermostat that actually comes with it. It looks like a pretty generic one you could find with like a pet store or something. And that you want to use to show the temperature of the water as you're heating it with the heating element here. Basic instructions here. I mean, this is just some of the stuff that I saved. You don't have to save any of this necessarily. These are the hooks I described that go in here. There's a little notch there or whatever, so it goes in there and you can hook it over a branch. Plastic tube end covers for the hose. You probably want to keep those in. I hadn't because I just was using this. A little screw. Anything you can do to keep anything out of there, dirt or whatever. The extra little gaskets here, and a generic type A to type C charging cable. All right, with that in mind, we're gonna bring the rest of this in the house. The only other thing I would say, the pump carries a 6,000 milliamp battery, which I found to be quite effective for a pump like this. And I'll show you again once we get inside, but with the flow rate that it uses, my battery really didn't even go down over the amount of time it took for me to take a shower. So you can probably get several hours of use out of this before you need to worry about recharging again. And so the actual charge here, see if I can actually get it out. I don't have any fingernails. So there's a type C port under this little rubber cover here. You pull this back and then you can get to the port. And then you need to make sure that you cover this back up again, because it's not waterproof without this, because this pump actually physically goes in the water. So you need to make sure that this type C port is covered when you're actually using it. It pulls back easy enough. I've got little nubbins of fingernails, so I usually need something to help me pull that back. All right, with that in mind, we're going to take this inside and show it in use. All right, so this is the little thermostat thermometer that comes with it.
It's a tiny little watch battery. Just pull out the plastic slip from the battery there, and it gets going. As you can see, the starting water temperature we've got here out of the tap is about 47 or so degrees. It's about 70 degrees outside, so that's not surprising. So I will show you how fast it takes for the heating element to warm this water up. When you're putting the pump in here, you want to make sure you don't start it until all these bubbles come out. I'm going to get it set on the bottom here. And the suction cup, see, it sticks just fine, and I'll show you the display once we actually power it on. Yes, this water is plenty cold, so the bubbles are stopped. So it should be good to turn on once we actually get going. But I'm going to wait and heat this water up first before we go ahead and do that. All right, so the heating element is on. You notice these little bubbles coming out of it, so you know it's working. That orange light as well. And 48 degrees starting point. Let's see how long it takes to get this water warm up. All right, it's been just under 25 minutes. We are now at about 102 degrees. You can see there's a lot more bubbles on this guy now, a lot more coming out as well. The orange light's still on, but the water doesn't heat super uniformly, so even if you move this around, you're going to get slightly different readings, but you know, approximately, yeah. So this is probably about as hot as I'm going to want it. So you even get it down to the 90s still down there at the bottom, and then over here it's a little higher. But regardless, so we're about 25 minutes or so. So we're going to mix this, maybe let it sit for another minute or two. Then going to unplug the heating element and take this out and set it aside to kind of just drip dry as we go ahead and use the pump in. And then we'll show you what the shower actually looks like. Before I forget, so this heating element does supposedly have an auto off feature, but it also says it goes up to about 140 degrees, which means that that auto off feature is more of a safety mechanism because you're not going to want to shower, I don't think, at 140 degrees. At least I'm not going to. That's probably scalding or close to it. So just keep that in mind. You're going to want to keep an eye on the temperature and unplug it as it reaches it. All right, as you can see, we're about 105, 106 degrees. I'm gonna go ahead and turn the pump on and show you what this looks like. See the green, that's the high flow mode. See it says about 70% battery, 39 degrees Celsius. Looks like there is a Fahrenheit switch there. I'm not sure how to switch that yet. But I use it on the low flow mode, at least here. So we've got this valve closed, as I mentioned. You know, try to save water soaping up or when you're not in there because this will go pretty quickly. So I'm gonna go ahead and turn this valve and show you. I'm trying to spray myself. Obviously kind of hard to tell from, you know, as the water warms up and the water was in the tube. But that's what your shower flow looks like. Obviously not as good as a real shower head, but in a pinch, emergency situation, it's going to do you just fine. Just a couple of closing thoughts here on the BSeed portable heated shower. I really like this pump. 6,000 milliamps is more than enough to get what you're going to need out of it in terms of longevity. Several hours, especially at the low flow setting. It moves, in my experience, about 0.7 or so gallons a minute at that rate. So the 5-gallon bucket for me lasted about 7 minutes, maybe a tad less, depending on how full the bucket is. You can obviously extend that with a larger water source. I'd originally thought about maybe putting the pump directly into the tub bottom and just filling that, but then you have issues with like the soap and who knows what else getting into this. And yes, you can take this apart and clean it, but I would worry about burning this pump out by introducing foreign elements into this, be it sediment or something else. So you probably want to be pretty careful about the water you're actually introducing into this. Again, I have no, longevity proof to say that, but just knowing how these pumps are, that's what I would do, and that's what I'm going to do. So I think that with the solution, the really sort of only thing I would worry about is sort of the longevity of this and the plastic, particularly the threads. I don't think there's a whole lot in here to break. It's a simple valve, and that's really it. So there's not a whole lot to break without rotating parts. Plastic threads, the only thing that really concerns me. That's probably about it. It's a good weight otherwise. I mean, I wouldn't throw it out of your truck, but so the only other thing maybe is, so this solution, the battery and the pump itself, Type-C, easy enough to charge, 6,000 milliamps, no problem. That's several hours, probably going to get you through, several days worth of camping or emergency usage. but this. So awesome to have. Heated shower makes a huge difference when you need it, when you're outdoors or when you know, away from a solution like a regular shower. But this used 2000 amps or 2000 watts and several milliamps. Who knows where it's 10 or 20. I haven't checked it, but this is, you're going to need like an RV or legitimate generator type power solution probably to power this, unless you have access to a GFI outlet in your home that's working. This you can charge off of a solar panel or any other sort of, you know, emergency battery solution. That's easy. This you need equivalent to almost a home type power solution. So depending on the type of power bank you have access to, that's really the only thing, but that kind of is expected. Heating water is expensive on power, so that's not surprising. The rest of this stuff is just fine, the thermostat, all that. This thing, the ratchet, maybe something in there that could be an issue long term, but honestly, it's probably fine. And the worst that can happen is this is just going to flop over. So honestly, that's probably fine. The suction cups, the hooks, all of that seems to be just fine. Extra gaskets, you could probably get those again if you had to anyway. So, I mean, pretty much everything in this is probably replaceable. The pump obviously is unique in that situation. This, you could buy a standalone solution probably just like this, I'm sure. The shower head is probably unique in that sense, but you could probably find something with plastic threads that's closer to a home solution. You'd have to look. But in general, I think it's a really good value. At $45, I wish I had spent, I spent 60, but even in that, I felt pretty good about it for the amount of, you know, shower water security you're getting here. So even at that price, I think it's a pretty good value. Great little pump, definitely the star of the show. Heating element works just great. This thing, I can't imagine this breaking really. So honestly, it's a pretty good little shower, and I think you're gonna be satisfied with it. All right, thanks for watching.